Greetings, fellow hostages. Captain Black here. Today's topic: beware the zombie swarm. This is my warning, a warning I give to someone I see on a near daily basis, and a warning to society at large. No, the dead have not started rising from the graves, but the literal undead are rising from the grave of ignorance and are being launched from households that promote said ignorance, and their violence has laid waste to the inner city, has gutted black culture, and stands poised on tearing this country down to its very foundation. People who keep count, the racial bean counters if you will note that aforementioned zombies do not have to all be black. But at day's end, it doesn't matter what their color is if they're able to destroy everything. And I do mean everything that we hold dear. Some people have theorized that in the wake of the Ferguson riots and the Baltimore riots that policemen nationally are choosing not to be as assertive in stopping people, in arresting people, because they fear that their stop, their arrest will be literally career ending. We can debate the validity of such a theory, but what we can't debate is that there is a real zombie swarm. And no matter how many times people try to rationalize and apologize for their chaos, those of us who are aware, regardless of your skin tone, regardless of your zip code, know that the zombie swarm is something that we have to guard against on a daily basis. In most of our cities, you cannot leave an item out in a public area without the certain outcome of it being stolen. Even homes and vehicles are broken into, and in the instance of carjacking and aggravated burglary, they are being broken into while the owner is inside them, and violence usually accompanies such breaking into. Now, you've got all kinds of groups, think tanks, foundations, commissions. Very few of them are made up of black people. Very few even have black people in them. See, I'm bringing the zombie swarm issue home for a moment, because long before we can have a multiracial coalition against the zombie swarm, we need to start at home and have our own intra-racial coalition against the zombie swarm. It's what I call the two-front approach. For those who favor prevention, who feel that education reform, mentoring, social programs, private and government, are the primary weapons to be used in stopping the swarm, then so be it. I favor protection. I know that the individual governs himself, and regardless of how much or how little he's had in life, his decisions ultimately shape his life. I know that if a person has bad intentions, no matter how much someone may beg or bribe him, if he is bound and determined to act on those intentions, he will do so. Consequently, by training and temperament, protection is what I offer society. But in the black community, the advocates of prevention and the advocates of protection oftentimes find themselves either at loggerheads or worse, at each other's throats. We have not seemed to realize that the two-front approach to this battle is the only winning strategy. Some small percentage can be saved through prevention. Some large percentage of potential victims can be saved through protection. Why not unite and just say that we are two wings of the same concerned citizenry? It does not benefit us, but it greatly benefits those outside our community when the protection and prevention advocates are always arguing and won't even talk to each other. The zombie swarm comes from either households near ours, or, if we're candid, many of our households, families, neighborhoods, and circles of association. We can't blame demonic possession. We can't blame aliens in orbit as the ultimate causes for these behaviors. We can't even blame history. And while post-traumatic slavery disorder is often debunked by conservatives and held aloft as the ultimate proof by progressives in the community, I'll give you the compromise measure. I do know that there is a cultural reason for why we're acting this way, but as David Carroll has often noted, the cultural reason did not start in slavery, with all the psychological damage that was inflicted upon us in the past through that peculiar institution, but it was inflicted in the days following the Civil Rights Revolution, the Sexual Revolution, and the revolution against traditional values. By the way, ideals and beliefs which sustained the black community through our darkest days. Once we abandoned our traditional values to try to be white people without portfolio, when we tried to be liberals without the sanction and the resources and the mobility of white liberals, is when we created the deadly conditions for the world we see before us. The zombie swarm, in many ways, is the bastard child of the hippies, of the progressives, of the liberals who always told black people that you don't need to think for yourself, you just need to do what we say. Well, folks, we've been doing what white liberals have been saying for roughly 50 years, and look at the result. Many of our children are zombies. Many people my age are either reformed zombies or have not had a chance to resume the frequency of their zombie behavior simply because they're burned out. We have a human capital attrition rate which rivals anything you would see in wartime with any other population. The zombie swarm has laid waste to everything that made being black sustainable and magnificent in the face of entrenched opposition. We're hard-pressed now to produce another Thurgood Marshall, or even a culture where Thurgood Marshalls would be the desired role, not just for lawyers, who we know are oftentimes more dedicated to following their bottom line than any pretense of serving the community, but for all the professions. You don't have to have a bunch of white folks with their social programs that serve themselves in order to be a dignified person, in order to be a person who is concerned about the safety of your community. White people don't enter the equation when it is you and I, literally, in the dark, trying to figure out how do we make our unsafe zip code, our unsafe block, our unsafe neighborhood safer. White folks enter at the tail end of this process. We are the ones. We are the cavalry. We are the general staff who will decide through our actions or our inactions just how far the zombie swarm goes. Now, when you look at other people, you will realize that while many of them may not necessarily be self-defense advocates, they do have enough among them who are religiously advocating and training and engaged in every dimension of self-defense practice, from the low end of just enhancing their awareness when they're out, inspecting their homes and making sure that they're not giving unfair advantage to potential trespassers or robbers. Cameras are a big pick, as are motion sensitive activated lighting, pepper spray, stun guns, and of course the ballistic option, firearms. And these are folks who, per capita, their fear of violent crime may or may not be higher than ours, but per capita, they're not the ones who are dying in droves, particularly in the adolescent, the young adult ranks like we are. Now there are, again, other per capita statistics where yes, they are leading the victim train in being targeted and assaulted. But in raw numbers, the people who are dying are us. In raw numbers, when it comes to the zombie swarm, it's your grandmother, or your sister, or, for the few of us who are married, your wife, who may find themselves victims of the zombie swarm. And lest we forget, since the swarm does not play favorites, it could be you. And you, as a black man, your skin color, your shared experience means nothing when a member of the zombie swarm has chosen you as his target. We have entered a new, stark, and even frightening terrain where the old solidarity, the old fidelity based upon shared ethnicity and experience mean nothing. Looking at other people and drawing comparisons may be instructive up to a point. I've always contended that our situation, while it does apply universally to other groups, is intensely unique. And in the area of the zombie swarm, we are by far facing a level of threat that few Americans can conceive of. And those who have some bare glimpse of what we're going through are frantically preparing themselves against it. So my question to you, if you happen to be an American black person, is, are you prepared to fight the zombie swarm? Because rest assured, the zombie swarm is prepared to fight you. Beware the zombie swarm, or die a hostage.